I remember the exact second those words left Ashley's mouth. Not tonight or any night. The final sound of it made my whole body go cold. We had been married for 6 years. Things had not been perfect lately, but I never expected her to make such a clear, permanent call about our intimate life. That evening started like any other day. I came home from work. We ate dinner and talked about small, ordinary things. After that, we moved to the living room. She scrolled through her phone, and I watched the television. I leaned over to kiss her neck, something that used to make her smile. She pulled away, quick and stiff. "Do not," she said. Eyes still on the screen. "I am not in the mood," she added. "You have not been in the mood for weeks," I answered, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "Is everything okay?" She set down her phone, looked straight at me, and said it in a steady tone I had never heard from her before. "Not tonight or any night. I am done with that part of our relationship." My mind sprinted through a dozen replies. I did not say any of them. I sat there without a word. How do you answer when your spouse ends physical closeness with one sentence? There was no explanation, no space to talk it through, just a one-sided decision that changed both of our lives. "What exactly do you mean?" I finally asked, hoping I had misunderstood. "Exactly what I said," she replied. "I have been thinking about this for a while." Her voice was calm in a way that felt unreal. "I like our life. I like the house, our friends, the steady routine. But I am not interested in physical intimacy anymore. You can accept that or not. That is your choice." Memories ran through me. The wild early days when we could not keep our hands off each other. The slow cooling over the past year. The excuses that showed up more and more. The way she had started to flinch when I touched her. The signs had been there. I looked away from them. I told myself it would turn around on its own. "Is there someone else?" I asked. The question sounded tired the second it left my mouth, and I regretted it. She actually laughed. "No, there is not. I am not interested in anyone in that way anymore. This is not about you in particular. I have moved past that part of life." Somehow that hurt worse. If there had been another person, I could have made her the villain in my head. But this was different. How do you fight a simple truth that your wife does not want you, or anyone, that way? The days after that were strange and still. We stayed in the same house. We ate dinner together. We watched the television together. But an invisible wall stood between us. Ashley acted like her statement was no bigger than switching a grocery brand, not a decision that would reshape our marriage. I brought up counseling. "We do not need therapy," she said, brushing it off. "There is nothing wrong with me, and I am not going to be pressured into physical intimacy. I do not want it." She was right that no one should be pressured. But her refusal to even talk about the sudden change left me feeling like I lived with a stranger who wore my wife's face. At night, I lay on my side of the bed, which now felt like a tool instead of a place for us. I stared at the ceiling and tried to understand how I had missed the slow break in our connection. Was I so focused on work that I did not see her pulling away? Or did she hide it until she reached a breaking point? One thing became clear. I was in a marriage where I was not wanted and not needed in any way that mattered. I was useful. I helped pay the bills. I showed up as her partner at events with couples. I kept the house running and helped keep up the look of a successful marriage. 2 weeks after her announcement, I sat in my car outside our place and could not make myself turn the key off and go in. What was waiting for me? Another quiet evening of polite small talk with someone who had changed the rules on me without asking. Right there, I realized I had a choice. I could live in this dry place, wishing for rain that would never fall. Or I could put my time, my attention, and my resources towards something that could grow. When I finally walked through the door, I already had a plan forming. It was not a plan to get even. It was not a plan to make a scene. It was a plan to redirect my energy. If Ashley had moved on without leaving the house, maybe I could move forward too. The next morning, I woke up with a steadier feeling. I wanted to understand what happened to us. Maybe there was still something to save. 6 years of a shared life does not just vanish overnight. "Can we talk?" I asked while she made breakfast, spreading avocado on her toast like it was any other day. "We are talking right now," she said without looking up. "I mean a real talk," I said. "About us. About what you said." I kept my voice as even as I could. "I think we owe our marriage at least one honest conversation." She let out a long breath and set the knife down with slow care. "There is nothing more to talk about," she said. "That cannot be it," I answered. "You have made your feelings clear, but you have not said why. Was it something I did? Was it something I failed to do?" People do not just wake up and decide to change a marriage at the roots for no reason. I did not wake up and decide this, she said, and a sharp edge finally cut through her calm voice. I have felt this way for months. Maybe if you had paid closer attention, you would have noticed. That landed hard because there was truth in it. I had been working longer hours. I had taken on extra projects to chase a promotion. I told myself it was for us and for our future. Then let us fix it together, I said. Marriage counseling, date nights, whatever it takes. Tell me what you need. She looked at me with something like pity. What I need is for you to accept my decision. I do not want to fix anything because I do not see anything broken. This is simply what I want now. And what about what I want? The words came out harder than I planned. You are free to want whatever you like, she said in a cool voice. But I will not pretend, and I will not force myself to keep a physical relationship I do not desire. Talking to her felt like talking to a wall. I made an appointment with a marriage counselor anyway, hoping a professional might sway her. I am not going, she said flatly when I told her. If you need therapy to make sense of this, go alone. So I went alone. The therapist, a kind-eyed woman in her 50s named Dr. Karen Miller, listened while I explained everything. Has your wife had any trauma or major life change recently? She asked. Nothing obvious, I said. Her job is steady. No deaths in the family. No health issues that I know of. Sometimes choices like this come from unprocessed experiences or psychological shifts, Dr. Miller said. Without her here, I can only help you with your response to what is happening. That was the moment it sank in. I was alone in trying to hold together what remained of our marriage. Ashley had already moved on inside her mind. She stayed because our life was comfortable and familiar. Home felt more unreal with each day. We ate dinner together. We went out with friends who had no idea. We kept all the surface habits of a normal couple. But there was no touch, no affection, not even the small, easy contact of brushing past each other in the hallway. I began to notice more signs. She never started a conversation. Her questions about my day were perfunctory. Her replies to my questions were short. It was as if she had built a separate track for her life under the same roof, and I was background noise. A housemate, not a husband. One night a friend of mine, Jason, said we looked like the perfect couple. I almost laughed out loud. Perfect. We were two ghosts moving through the same rooms, keeping up a careful show. That night, awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, I faced a few hard truths. I was holding on to something that no longer existed. The woman sleeping beside me was not the person who once looked at me with love and hunger. Or maybe she was, and her feelings had simply changed. I also saw how I had let her decision define my worth. Every day I spent waiting for a change that was not coming was a day I lost a little respect for myself. 3 months into this new reality, I watched her get ready to go out with friends. She put on makeup with slow care, something she had not done for me in a long time. You look nice, I said, testing the waters. Thanks, she answered, not even glancing my way. That tiny exchange brought everything into focus. I had become invisible to her in the ways that matter. After she left, I sat alone in the living room and weighed my choices. I could keep living this half-life and survive on scraps of basic conversation. I could leave and break the comfortable structure we had built. Or I could try something else. The idea did not arrive as a full plan. It showed up like an instinct for survival. If she could redirect her emotional energy away from me while keeping our outside life the same, maybe I could do that too. Not from spite, not from revenge, from self-preservation. The next morning I woke before her and, for the first time in months, felt a small rise of hope. I would redirect my time, attention, and resources, not to win her back, but to get myself back. I began with small steps. I set my alarm for 5:30 in the morning, 1 full hour before she woke. Those quiet early hours became sacred to me, a space that belonged only to me. I started with 20 minutes of meditation. I used to call that impractical. But a short stretch of morning stillness cleared out the constant noise about my failing marriage. Then I moved my body. Nothing dramatic. Push-ups, sit-ups, a short run around the block. By the 3rd morning of my new routine, I had already showered, dressed, and gotten a head start on the day. I was at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a book when Ashley walked in. You are up early, she said. Just making some changes, I answered. I kept it simple and did not offer more. She did not ask. In the 2nd week, I signed up at a gym near my office. Instead of rushing home to an apartment that felt tense and tight, I spent about an hour lifting and sweating. The weight room turned into a kind of therapy. Each repetition pushed a little more resentment out of my chest. Each set made room for something steadier than self-pity. I also reached out to old friends I had let drift while I chased promotions and played the role of the steady husband. We met for lunch. We grabbed a drink after work. Nothing dramatic. I did not talk about my marriage. I did not try to win sympathy or tear Ashley down. I was rebuilding connections that had nothing to do with being someone's spouse. At home, I kept things civil and slowly cut the emotional cords. When she talked, I listened, but I stopped hanging on every word. When she focused on her own plans, I no longer orbited her for scraps of attention. I put that energy into the things I had put off for years. I read the books I had stacked beside the couch. I signed up for online classes I had bookmarked and ignored. After about a month, the mirror started to show the results. My shoulders sat back where they belonged. The tight knot that had lived between my shoulder blades began to loosen. My face looked less pinched. The biggest change was in my eyes. There was focus there again. There was life there again. I upgraded my clothes next. Nothing flashy. No panic buys. Just shirts that actually fit and pants that matched the body I was building. When I wore a new button-down to dinner with friends, a couple of people said I looked good. I could feel it too. Ashley noticed. She did not say anything, but one morning I caught her watching me while I tied my shoes. There was a small frown on her face, like she was trying to match this new version of me with the man she had already set aside. I redirected my money as well. We had always kept separate accounts along with a joint one for the house and bills. I kept paying my share of the joint costs, but I changed where my extra cash went. I had been saving for an expensive watch to give Ashley for our upcoming anniversary. I took that fund and signed up for a photography workshop instead. Years ago, I had loved taking pictures. Then I quit. I told myself I did not have time. Now I made time. Photography pulled me outside on the weekends. I drove to trailheads in the dark and started hikes before sunrise. I stood on ridges while the sky turned from cold blue to warm gold. Framing a shot pressed everything else into the background. When I looked through the viewfinder, the noise in my head dropped away. I posted a few photos online. Other photographers reached out. I learned from them. A small group started to follow my work and told me I had a good eye for clean lines and simple light. After a few weeks of coming and going early on Saturdays, Ashley finally asked, "Where have you been going so early?" "Taking photographs," I said. "Since when are you into photography?" she asked. "I have always been into it," I said. "I just did not make time for it until now." Her face flickered like she had more questions, but she let them pass. Maybe she did not know how to ask. Maybe she did not want to show interest in my life after stepping back from it so firmly. At work, the changes showed up too. I stopped dragging the weight of home through every meeting. I picked up projects with a clear head. I spoke calmly. I finished things on time. My boss pulled me aside after I presented a new client plan. "Whatever you are doing, keep doing it," he said. "You are on fire lately." The praise landed harder than I expected. For months, I had felt unwanted in my own house. Hearing that I was valuable somewhere reminded me I was still a whole person. It did not fix everything, but it filled enough of the empty space to keep moving. As the third month of this redirection rolled in, I realized I was sleeping through the night. I looked healthier. I was sharper on the job. The only part that did not improve was my marriage, which stayed stuck in a shell of polite talk and parallel lives. The irony was not lost on me. By withdrawing her affection, Ashley had pushed me toward a stronger version of myself. One evening, I was heading out to meet a few photographers at a community center across town. I had my camera bag on my shoulder when Ashley asked, "Are you seeing someone else?" I stopped near the door. "No," I said. It was the truth. "Why would you ask that?" "You have changed," she said. There was a tone in her voice I could not place. "You are hardly ever home." The tilt of it almost made me laugh, but I kept my face steady. "I am redirecting my time and energy into things that fulfill me," I said, using the same careful language she liked to use. "Is that not what you have been doing?" She did not reply. I did not wait for one. I left and drove across town to the meetup. On the way there, something shifted for good. For the first time since the night she said those final words, I was not hoping she would change her mind. I was too busy building a life that did not rise or fall on her attention. I was choosing myself, not as payback, but as a way to be alive again. For months into my redirection, the changes were not just something I noticed in the mirror. Everyone around me could see them. On a Wednesday morning, my boss called me into his office and gave me news that would have been the highlight of my year not long ago. "We are promoting you to senior manager," he said. "Your work these past few months has been excellent. Whatever you have changed in your personal life, it is paying off here." I thanked him and meant it. I knew exactly why my performance had jumped. I had poured all that lost energy into clear goals instead of wasting it on a situation at home that was not going to improve. The raise that came with the title opened doors I had not considered before. That night at dinner, I told Ashley. "That is great," she said, and then she paused. "Will that mean even longer hours?" "Possibly," I said, watching her face. "Does it matter?" She moved food around her plate. "Of course it matters. We hardly see each other already." The irony hit me like a bell. I did not think that bothered you, given our arrangement. "Our arrangement does not mean I want to live with a complete stranger," she said. I set my fork down. "That is interesting. I have been living with a stranger ever since you decided to change our marriage on your own. Now that I am adjusting, that is suddenly a problem." She did not answer. We ate the rest of the meal in silence. Later that night, I moved half of my promotion bonus into our joint account to cover the house and shared bills. I invested the other half following a plan my new financial advisor had laid out. I wanted my money to work for my future, and more, I could picture that future without her in it. My body kept changing too. After a hard session at the gym, the manager walked over. "Have you ever thought about competing?" he asked. I laughed, thinking he was kidding. He was not. "There is a small amateur fitness competition coming up. Nothing huge. Guys with half your time under the bar are signing up. You have the discipline and the frame for it." 6 months earlier, I would have brushed it off. That day, I asked for details and put my name down. The event gave my training a new edge. It was no longer just a way to escape the house. It had a finish line. I started lifting with a guy named Alex. He was divorced and had a dry sense of humor that I liked. After a few weeks, I told him a trimmed-down version of my home life. "So she just opted out of that part of the marriage?" he asked, eyebrows up. "Pretty much," I said. "And you are still there because—" It was a fair question I had avoided. Inertia, I guess, and a little hope that fades more each week. Alex shook his head. "Man, life is too short. My ex and I fought like hell, but at least we both cared enough to fight. What you are describing is not a marriage. It is a roommate situation with extra steps." His blunt take cut through the fog. Most people offered soft lines about rough patches. They did not get that this was not a rough patch. It was a different arrangement altogether. Meanwhile, the photography hobby kept growing. A local gallery owner saw my work online and invited me to join a group show. Seeing my prints framed and hanging under bright lights felt unreal. It was a solid piece of proof that my life had shifted. I invited several friends and did not mention it to Ashley. So I was surprised when she walked in, looking a little out of place among the art crowd. She stopped in front of a sunrise landscape I had shot from a ridge above the river. "These are really good," she said. "I had no idea you were so talented." "There is a lot about me you do not know anymore," I said, not unkind. Or maybe never knew. A woman from the gallery joined us. "Your husband has an exceptional eye," she told Ashley. "We have already sold 3 of his pieces tonight." Ashley's eyes widened a bit. "That is wonderful," she said, though her face looked more puzzled than proud. We drove home in separate cars. I had come straight from work. On the way, I thought about her showing up. Was she truly interested in what I was building, or just surprised that I had built a life that did not turn around her plans? At home, we operated like courteous housemates. We split chores. We synced calendars when needed. We kept the place in good shape. The part that makes a marriage was gone, but the grief had softened. I was not clinging to what used to be. The competition day arrived, and I placed 3rd in my class. Standing on that short platform with a medal around my neck felt steady and real. Not because I craved praise, but because it marked the distance between who I had been on that terrible night and who I was now. After the event, a few women came over to talk. Some were clearly flirting. I was polite, honest, and calm. I did not make promises. I did not fish for attention. I just stood there, sweaty and tired and proud, and realized I was finally living a life that moved under its own power. I stayed friendly but kept my distance. I was not ready to add new complications to my life. Even so, the attention reminded me of something I had almost forgotten. I was still someone people could want. I was worthy of affection. I could draw real interest. That night, I set my medal in a drawer. As I slid it shut, Ashley paused in our doorway. "Congratulations," she said. "I saw the pictures your friend posted online." "Thank you," I said. She hesitated. "Are you happy with all these changes?" I thought for a moment. I am happier than I was when I spent my nights trying to understand why my wife decided I was no longer worth touching. So yes, in a relative sense, I am happy. She flinched at that. "That is not fair." "None of this has been fair," I said. "But we deal with what we have. You redirected away from me. I am redirecting toward a better version of myself." She walked off without another word. As I listened to her steps fade down the hall, it hit me that I was nearing a true fork in the road. This redirection was no longer a coping tool. It was a new path, and it might lead me away from her entirely. The turning point came at a company retreat about 6 months into this new life. My team spent a weekend at a quiet lakeside resort for planning and team building. After a full day of meetings, we sat around a fire pit with drinks, telling stories under a clear sky. Sarah, who had joined the marketing group 3 months earlier, took the empty seat beside me. She kept her voice low, so only I could hear. "You know, when I started, everyone told me how lucky I was to work with you." "Really? Why is that?" I asked. "They said you turned the department around," she said. "They also said you changed a lot personally. They said you used to seem withdrawn, even sad. That does not match the person I have met." I watched the flames and chose my words. "I had some personal struggles," I said. "I decided to focus on what I can control instead of what I cannot." She nodded. "Whatever you did worked. You look completely in your element now." We kept talking. It felt easy in a way I had not felt with anyone for a long time. Sarah was sharp and funny. She noticed details and had a way of seeing the big picture without forcing it. We discovered we both love photography and hiking. I showed her some of my recent shots on my phone. She leaned in to swipe through them. "You have real talent," she said. "These deserve to be published." The warmth of her shoulder against mine sent a quick, unexpected charge through me. It reminded me just how long it had been since I had felt even casual closeness. I shifted a little, not wanting to overreact or drift into something I was not ready for. When the group broke up for the night, Sarah walked with me along the gravel path toward the cabins. "A few of us are doing a sunrise hike before the morning session," she said. "You should come. The light will be perfect for those landscape shots." "I will be there," I said. At dawn, I stood on a ridge with Sarah and 2 coworkers while the sky turned orange and pink. I took dozens of pictures. My lens kept drifting back to Sarah's profile against the bright horizon. The line of her jaw, the wind moving her hair, the quiet way she watched the valley come alive. It all landed in the frame like it belonged there. Sunday evening, I got home and found Ashley cooking. That alone was unusual. She had not made dinner for the 2 of us in months. "How was the retreat?" she asked, sounding more engaged than normal. "Productive," I said, putting my bag down. "We locked the plan for next quarter." She nodded. "I saw the photos you posted. Beautiful location." "It was," I said, wondering about her sudden interest. "That woman in some of the pictures," she asked. "Is she on your team?" I had not realized how many shots included Sarah. "That is Sarah," I said. "She is our new marketing specialist." "She is very pretty," Ashley said, studying my face. I had not noticed. I lied, feeling defensive even though I had done nothing wrong. "Really?" Her eyebrows lifted. "You posted about a dozen photos with her in them." I took my time with the next words. "She was in the group a lot. She happened to be in the frame." "Why are you asking?" Ashley turned back to the stove. "Just curious about your colleagues," she said. Her tone carried something else, concern or jealousy, or both, feelings that did not fit well with the distance she had chosen. Over the next few weeks, the air in our house shifted in small ways. Ashley asked more questions about my day. She cooked now and then. One Friday, she suggested we watch a movie together. Months earlier, that attention would have thrilled me. Now it mostly left me confused. I could not tell if it was real interest, guilt, or fear that I was finally building a life that did not revolve around her at all. At work, Sarah and I took the lead on a major campaign. Her ideas were bold and quick. My job was to shape them into a plan that could win clients. The fit was natural. We stayed late more than once, eating takeout at the conference table and trading stories while files rendered on the screen. I kept clear lines. No flirting. No hints. Still, I liked being around her. She listened. She cared about what I thought. She made me feel seen, and that simple feeling was a relief. One night, long after the office had emptied, Sarah looked over and asked, "Can I ask something personal?" "Go ahead," I said, though I felt a twist in my stomach. "Are you happy outside of work?" "That is complicated," I told her. "I have noticed you never talk about home," she said. "You talk about your photos, your training, your investments, but you never mention your relationships." I paused, then gave her part of the truth. "My marriage has been hard. We live like two separate people in one house." Her face showed concern without pity, and I was grateful for the difference. "I am sorry," she said. "You deserve better." Those 4 words landed hard. You deserve better. Not a cliché, not advice, just a clean statement that the situation I described was not good enough for someone she respected. I drove home with her words rattling around inside me. Did I deserve better? I had spent so long trying to decode Ashley's withdrawal, then trying to live around it, that I had not really asked whether I should accept it at all. When I walked in, Ashley was awake on the couch. That alone was unusual. "You have been working late a lot," she said as I set my keys down. "Big campaign," I said. "We are making progress." "Is it going well with Sarah?" she asked, careful and flat. "Yes," I said, meeting her eyes. "She is the creative lead. Why do you keep asking about her?" Ashley hesitated, then let out what had probably been building for weeks. "Because she looks at you the way I used to. And in those photos, you look happier with her team than you have seemed around here in months." Her words sat between us. Not an accusation, not a confession. More like the moment you finally name what has been obvious for a while. "We need to talk," I said. "For real. Not the surface-level stuff we have been doing." She nodded. We moved to the living room, the same place where she had ended our intimate life what felt like ages ago. We sat facing each other like neighbors splitting a bill. "Are you having an affair?" she asked. Her voice was steady, but tight. "No," I said. "I have not broken our vows." "But you were thinking about it," she said. I could have dodged. Instead, I told the truth. "I am thinking about many things. About what a marriage is when one person changes the rules alone. About whether companionship without intimacy and without emotional connection is enough for the rest of a life. About whether I am living honestly or just moving through a routine." She stared down at her hands. "So you are punishing me. You changed everything, your body, your schedule, your hobbies, and now you are flirting with your coworker." I did not feel angry. I felt clear. This is not punishment. It never was. It is survival. When you told me not tonight or any night, you did not just end the physical part. You rejected me as a partner who deserves desire and affection. "That is not fair," she said. "I never stopped caring about you." "Caring is not the same as loving," I said. "You kept the comfortable parts of our life and threw away the rest." For months I tried to make sense of that. I tried to adapt. I tried to respect your choice and still keep my head straight. I took a breath. My changes were not about making you jealous. They were not about attracting anyone else. They were about taking back pieces of myself that were dying in the shadow of your rejection. She was quiet a long time. "I did not think it would hit you like this," she said at last. "I thought we could keep everything else the same." The casual cruelty of that landed like ice. "How could you think that? Marriage is not a buffet where you take what you like and leave the rest." "People change," she said. "Feelings change." I was honest instead of pretending. "You were honest," I said. "And I am being honest now. The man who sat here shattered on that first night is gone. What I have built since then is not a temporary fix. It is who I am. A man who values himself enough not to live on scraps." A single tear slid down Ashley's cheek. It was the first real emotion I had seen from her in a long time. "So you are leaving me for her?" she asked. I shook my head. "This is not about Sarah or anyone else. This is about us, and about what is broken between us, and whether it is worth the work." "And is it?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. The question deserved real weight. We had built a life together. We had memories, inside jokes, plans we once believed in. Walking away would not be simple or painless. "I do not know," I said. "But I do know this. I am not going back to the way it was. I will not pretend your one-sided decision did not change our marriage at the roots. And I will not apologize for becoming stronger because of it." She wiped her face and steadied herself. "So what happens now?" "Now we decide based on what is true, not what is easy," I said. "You chose to move your emotional energy away from this marriage. That was your right. I chose to shift my time, attention, and resources toward personal growth. That was my right. Next, we both decide whether there is anything left to save or if we are simply not a match anymore. And if I want to try? There was a small thread of hope in her voice that surprised me. Then you need to understand that we cannot go backward, I said. There is no return to the time before your declaration, and there is no future in this half-marriage we have been living. If we move forward together, it has to be towards something new, something that respects who we both are now. She nodded slowly. And if I cannot give you what you need? I owed her an honest answer. Then we part, and we do it with kindness and respect for what we were. We talked for hours. We peeled back old layers of hurt and confusion. She shared that her own struggles with self-image had fed her withdrawal. I admitted how deeply her rejection had cut into my sense of worth and desirability. There were no quick fixes, no dramatic reunion, just two people finally naming the distance and wondering if a bridge was even possible. By the time the sky turned pale, we had a decision that felt both painful and necessary. We would try a separation, not as a guaranteed step toward divorce, but as a real pause. Time to figure out what each of us wanted before deciding what we could offer to each other. I moved into a furnished apartment the next weekend. Setting it up felt oddly freeing. I arranged the furniture the way I liked. I chose the prints for the walls. The place looked like the person I had become, not a museum to the life I had lost. 2 weeks into the separation, a text from Ashley asked if we could meet for coffee. We chose a quiet cafe halfway between her place and mine. When she walked in, she looked different. Not a dramatic makeover like my physical changes, but more present, more awake to the room. I have been thinking a lot, she said after our careful hello. About what you said, that I changed our marriage on my own. I nodded and waited. You were right, she said. I made a choice that affected both of us, and I did not really consider what it would do to you. That was not fair. It was not respectful. The acknowledgement mattered. Not as much as it would have months ago, but it mattered. Thank you for saying that, I said. There is something else, she added. She wrapped her hands around her cup. Watching you become this new person, confident, focused, alive, made me see how stuck I have been, not only with you, but in my own life. The truth is, I was jealous. Not of Sarah or anyone else, but of the change itself. You found purpose and passion. I was just existing. Her honesty disarmed me. What does that mean for us? I asked. I do not know yet, she said, meeting my eyes. But I have started therapy. I am looking for my own redirections. Whether that brings us back together or sends us apart, I needed you to know you inspired it. We talked for about an hour, and it felt more real than anything we had said to each other in a year. When we stood to leave, I realized my redirection had come full circle. What started as a survival move after being abandoned emotionally had become a true path toward myself. I walked to my car feeling neither victorious nor defeated. I felt calm. I was at peace with who I had become through the hard parts. Whatever came next, I would meet it as a man who no longer lived for someone else's approval or attention, but as someone who had relearned his own worth.